This episode of the BeanCast is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you advertise on LinkedIn, you can build lasting relationships with customers that often translate to high-quality leads, website traffic, and higher brand awareness. For a free $100 LinkedIn ad credit, go to linkedin.com/BeanCast. Terms and conditions apply. Bandwidth provided by Recursive Squirrel Interactive. Transcription services provided by transcribeme.com. Visit them on the web at transcribeme.com/BeanCast for up to 25% off. That's transcribeme.com. Episode 521, A Post-Advertising World. Monday, November 19th, 2018. It's time for this week's edition of the BeanCast, a weekly discussion about the news and issues facing marketers today. I'm your host, Bob Norp. Thanks for joining us. We've often debated on the show what the future of advertising looks like. But could it be that the value exchange of advertising is fundamentally broken? And if so, shouldn't we really be debating what comes after advertising? Tonight, we'll discuss. Also, television's rocky road to digital, the growing importance of Instagram, why PR fails to compete well at creative award shows, plus this week's Ad Fail 5. That's the lineup. Let's meet tonight's panel. Thanks for joining us for this week's BeanCast. I'm Bob Norp, and with me on the panel for this evening, we start with the president of Arcadia Communications Lab, author, speaker, Mr. Jonathan Salem Baskin. Jonathan, welcome back, man.
Hey, Bob. Great to be here. Thank you.
Now, next, we welcome back the principal at Find the Red Thread, speaker and consultant, Ms. Tamsyn Webster. Tamsyn, hi, how are you?
Hey, Bob.
And yes, I once again went for the Webster twofer. From Edison Research, we say hello to the Senior Vice President of Strategy and Marketing, Mr. Tom Webster. Hi, Tom.
That's only $20.95 at Benihana.
I didn't know. Well, I'll have to make plans to go there. Well, let's get into the topics. First up, Gord Hotchkiss took a look at what's truly disrupting advertising and came up with some fairly insightful conclusions. Now, the article on MediaPost essentially claims that there is no longer a healthy value exchange between ads and consumers. I kind of like the way that was put. So, Tom, take us through what he means by this. What are your thoughts? Is he right?
You know, I do. I think he is right. And I think, as you know, Bob, and maybe the listeners don't, I've been a media researcher for over 20 years. And so much of broadcast media, especially, is dependent upon what I like to call the ad bargain. And, you know, that is, I will give you X amount of my attention in exchange for free content that I like. And that ad bargain has held up for, you know, years and years and years. And you think back, you know, when FM radio started, that was the ad bargain. That's like, I can only get free music that I like from FM radio. And so I will give you X amount of my attention. The problem with that is that we have so many ad-free or ad-Spartan choices. And, you know, and Bob, I'll just ask you, like, what are the last 3 shows that you watched, either shows or movies, that you really liked?
Oh, you know, I've watched so many this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
sure.
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
All of it has been streaming. I mean,
It's been streaming.
However, I have watched a lot of stuff on Hulu over the last couple days, so I have had my fair share of bad ad experiences.
Well, but still, your share of kind of interrupt style advertising is way down from what it was 5 years ago. I'm confident in that because we all watch. I mean, the majority of America subscribes to Netflix. I can tell you that, and that's not an exaggeration, right? So we're watching Netflix. A lot of us are watching HBO. A lot of us are listening to Pandora and Spotify and satellite radio, which are either ad-free or ad-Spartan, depending on your level with them. And we're all, hopefully, if you are listening to us now, listening to podcasts, which are also very ad Spartan. So the ad bargain is kind of breaking down. If I have all of these other sources where I can get free or free-ish content that I like, and only hear, 6 ads an hour, like on Pandora, as opposed to somewhere between 18 and 6,000 on commercial FM radio, then the ad bargain is breaking down. And so here's what I think the challenge is for all of this. Advertising, and let's distinguish advertising from marketing very clearly here. Advertising used to be about making me want your product, but that's now the brand's challenge. Advertising's challenge is making me want to see the advertising, and that's what's different. That's what's changed. And I mean, I have some thoughts about where I think those ad dollars need to go. But
something you said about, I know you were being facetious, but in reality, we are exposed, depending on where you are in the country, to either 600 or 5,000 ad impressions a day, depending on whether you're in a metro area or whether or not you're in a rural area. But I mean, is it just ad overload that is contributing to this, or is it something more fundamental with the breakdown between consumers and the advertisers in terms of the value exchange that we're getting out of advertising? Is it just lack of trust, or is it just media overload?
Well, it's advertising overload, and again, I think as people, we used to have these different experiences on these different boxes. Your experience on the TV was a different thing than your experience watching something on the computer. Your experience listening to a broadcast radio was different from your experience, subscribing to one of the early streaming audio providers, let's say. But all of those lines are blurred. We're consuming everything on mobile devices now, and so everything's kind of in the same consideration set. And so if it's somewhere in the back of my mind, I know that if I press this button on Pandora, I'm only going to get 6 ads, but if I press this button on iHeartMedia, I'm going to get 40. If once they're in that same consideration set, it kind of rewires your brain a little bit. So, that's the bargain that's broken down.
Yeah, and if I can riff on that, I think Tom's absolutely right. And it's interesting because I'm here in Chicago, and we were at the Art Institute over the weekend, and I went into the bookshop, and they had a whole rack of these Taschen hardcover books, these glossy things that are like 5 million pages on medieval alchemy, and stuff you just need, right? And they had but they were all on sale, so of course I needed one, and for $20 I got a book of mid-century ads. And it's one of these beautiful, literally a couple hundred pages of all these ads from the 1950s. And it just struck me that, as Tom was talking about that bargain, was I'll give you my time. And I think he's absolutely right. It's broken down. I don't have to buy into that exchange. But then secondarily, underneath that is the fact that I don't know if people learn anything from ads anymore. I think they did once upon a time. I think people looked to ads, consciously or otherwise, and felt that they were being informed or educated or inspired or whatever. And I based on research of one, because again I'm standing here with this book in my hand, but it just seemed like these ads talked about a way of life, a way of living, a way of consuming, and just to be terribly broad, I don't think that advertising is holding up that end of the bargain any longer. Perhaps because the cultural zeitgeist has changed.
Well, maybe it's a matter of trust. I mean, when it comes down to it, what was sold to us as the ideal American lifestyle has largely been debunked anymore, and it's harder and harder to present a better lifestyle in an advertisement that isn't conceived as something unreachable for most of the middle class. I mean, I'm watching Sleep Number bed ads, and I'm seeing this young couple in a house that I can't even imagine affording. You know what I mean? And it's just like I'm sitting there going, how is this even possible for me to put myself in that kind of scenario? I feel lied to. And I imagine it's even worse for a 20-something who identifies with the couple in the ad because they're definitely not getting ahead.
I think we're, given our positions in the advertising, marketing, communication world, I think we're giving people a lot more credit for what they're looking for. because I have to say there are certain places where I get downright angry when ads come into play. Just ask Tom how frequently I've been ranting against how often I have to pay for the good journalism that I want. I mean, I'm fine with paying with a couple, but when I have to, subscribe to Adweek or Media Post, I'm like, well, there's got to be another way to see that stuff. But at the same time, I gotta say, I've bought a lot of stuff off of Facebook ads.
Oh,
And
yeah,
so
I agree with you.
We're using this advertising thing as if it's broadcast media, and we're forgetting that there's some ads that are working really, really well in social platforms.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point. I mean, direct mail always worked when it was done right. So the idea that we could go one-to-one with a customer or consumer and get them to purchase something is, I think that's a consistent through time, whether it's a Facebook ad or it's a brilliantly laid out 4-color cardboard, postcard that came in the mail that hit the right person at the right time with the right offer. So I think you're absolutely right. It's that broader broadcast, and maybe, Bob, to your point, that advertising really has gotten into the business of entertaining and trying to and selling because of the one-to-one nature of digital communication, and that branding has taken up the responsibility that once was in the advertising. Again, back to my 1950s ads, I'm now leafing through this book. 80% of it or more is all branding. I mean, it's all about a better life through TWA. It's not here's your 10% ticket discount because we know you fly to Vegas, and if you buy now, you get your second one for a discount. I mean, it's branding.
And that's exactly what Tom set up the conversation as being. There is a distinct difference between marketing and advertising. Advertising's primary purpose is to create a brand impression, to create awareness, to get people to feel good or buy into a lifestyle that you're trying to project. I mean, it's got a different set of purposes, and it's largely being rejected by consumers, is what the point of this article is saying.
I disagree with the lifestyle part, and maybe that's because I'm overly influenced by Facebook ads. But because what I see,
but Facebook is not doing
for ads that are aimed towards women, so things like somersault swimsuits and Third Love lingerie, is not something that's aspirational.
But that's marketing. That's direct marketing. That's putting a dress in front of you.
Through an ad.
Yeah, but putting a dress in front of you with a price tag and saying click now to buy, that's a whole different experience than trying to say you're going to be, a special lady in this, It's just like
I want to be a special lady.
It's no longer trying to project a lifestyle. It's just trying to project a transactional opportunity for you. And your whole reason for clicking on that ad is largely based on the fact that you've established some kind of relationship with this brand ahead of time. If they had shown this cool looking dress and you knew nothing about this brand, you would be more likely to just overlook that ad or be skeptical of that ad. So brands
still... Not if it's a dress I like. I mean, that's what's so interesting to me about what's happening in the social platforms is I'm getting exposed to brands, to products that I've never seen before that I'm interested in simply on the virtue of the product itself.
Well, and here, Bob, is what's really going to disrupt advertising, and that is the disruption of the advertising function. And to go back to Gord's article, a couple of things are getting disrupted here. Advertising obviously is getting disrupted, but therefore the purveyors of those things, the ad agency, is really getting disrupted. And I have to say, I'm happy. I want them to be disrupted. And as someone who's toiled behind the glass of literally 1,000 focus groups and even more survey questionnaires, I've spent decades of my life having my work valued by the brands and devalued by the ad agencies that they represent. And now these agencies are behind people like Accenture. They're behind the digital disruptors, the people that can actually take your dollars and turn $1 into $2 by optimizing your digital marketing. And at that point, it becomes a play for those dollars with brands, right? If I'm a brand that has $1 million to spend, do I spend that $1 million with an ad agency that will attempt to create attention for my brand? Or do I give that $1 million to Accenture to optimize my Facebook ads and show Tamsyn the dresses she really likes? Like that, at that point, things get messy.
I mean, what I find so interesting is that this dichotomy between advertising trying to establish this lifestyle into which, if I buy this brand or if I buy this product, then I'm getting that lifestyle somehow. That to me is the older model. And what I see happening now is this brands figuring out what my lifestyle already is and serving me things that fit into that.
Right, and it makes it a brand agnostic experience. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter where you're getting this product from. It doesn't matter what the retailer's brand is. It doesn't even hardly matter what the dress's brand is. It matters what your experience is in that moment. When you see this ad, you think that would be really cute on me. I think I'm going to go buy that. The price is right. I'm going to do it. It's transactional. And what my question is if brand still plays a role, and we know that it does, because at a certain measure, you're always dealing with the experience with an ad. Like if you see an ad from a certain retailer who you've done business with before, you feel better about that experience. So we know brand plays a part. But if it's not coming through ads, what does the future of advertising look like? I mean, we've debated on this show so many times what the future of ads look like, but I'm starting to believe that the true debate needs to be what comes after advertising. How do we establish brands? How do we establish value and awareness of what our brand stands for in a post-advertising world where marketing and direct transactional opportunities are ruling the roost? Anybody want to tackle that one?
No.
Well, we have. It's a little relevant to our next topic, so I'll bounce that back to you. But for the most part, we don't like ads.
And thousands of years of commerce happened without advertising, and so I think what you're seeing is a return to the strength of a brand's products and services being the brand itself. I mean, one of your favorite BeanCast guests, Mitch Joel, wrote an amazing post the other day about how like the business is the brand and the brand is the business, and there's really no separation. And so that's where I think everything is going, because I can see all those ads for cute dresses, but anyone who knows me is if it comes from DVF, like Diane von Furstenberg, I'm all in. And the thing is, yes, I'm more attuned to those ads. Yes, I'm more attuned to the emails that they send, but it's because year in, year out for 40 years now, there has been an ethos that matches mine. And that's enough.
Well, we're going to move on and we're going to continue this conversation in the TV landscape. Well, we're going to be discussing how TV will finally turn the corner into the digital age. It's been going on for some time, but it's still progressing. We'll get on to that in just a minute. But first, I want to talk about your marketing. I want to talk about your business marketing, because when it comes to marketing your business, it's all about reaching the right audience at the right time and connecting with them with a message that's going to resonate at the absolute best it possibly can. So how are you going to do that? Well, if you want to target your customers, you got to go to where they're engaging every day and where they're ready to make a decision. And that's why LinkedIn is such a great choice for your marketing and advertising. Look, when you advertise on LinkedIn, you're not only getting the world's largest professional network, you're also getting the opportunity to build long-term relationships with customers who really matter to your bottom line. You're going to get the kind of relationships that translate into things like high-quality leads, website traffic, higher brand awareness. That's because over 575 million professionals engage with content on LinkedIn. And with that many people on the service, you know the chances are your future customers are going to be among them. And when you're there, the targeting is absolutely some of the best targeting you can get on any social platform, because LinkedIn has the marketing tools to help you target your customers right down to the job title, to the company name, to the industry. And remember, better targeting equals a message your customers care about, which in turn leads to more trust built with those customers. And one last fact, I want you to keep in mind that 4 out of 5 customers who are on LinkedIn are decision makers at their companies. Now, that's worth repeating, so I'm going to say it again. 4 out of 5 customers who are on LinkedIn are decision makers at their companies. So that you know what that means. It means you're going to build relationships with people who matter to you. So I want to give you this offer. This is a great opportunity for you to try LinkedIn for yourself, for your business, to redeem a free $100 LinkedIn ad credit and launch your first ad campaign on the service. I want you to go to this web address. Go to linkedin.com/BeanCast. Got to go to BeanCast. We got to get the credit for this. That's linkedin.com/BeanCast for your free $100 ad credit. Now, terms and conditions apply. It's all on the site, clearly spelled out. Just go to the website and check it out for yourself. Remember, LinkedIn, absolutely the best place to target your next business campaign. And we thank them very much for their support of the show. Well, we've discussed the digital transformation of television ad nauseum on this program, but there are indications that we are finally at a tipping point. Now, Tom, is TV finally at the precipice, and does the weight of being a several billion-dollar ad media give the industry an advantage, or simply weigh them down? What's your take on the status of television's move toward the digital age?
Well, the one thing about media buyers and advertising agencies and marketing agencies and the people who take those orders at the network level, they all have the same goal, and that is don't get fired.
True.
Right. So, I mean, if the television industry is X billion dollars in revenue, it's not going to be 0.1 X billion dollars next year. It's just not. Those dollars have to go somewhere. And those dollar amounts shift very slowly over time. But, and it's funny, I saw an ad, not an ad, but I saw an article this week that YouTube has launched the ability, now get this, they've launched the ability to watch recent movies for free if you will watch regular commercial interruptions.
Yeah,
and that's
I saw
really
that.
a novel idea. I've only ever seen that from ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, AMC. And
I hear Hulu's getting into that too.
You know what? Hulu, exciting young kids at Hulu. I wonder, like, where do the ad dollars go? And we talked a little bit in the last segment about all the things that we're subscribing to. You subscribe to Netflix, you subscribe to HBO. We're soon going to get a Disney offering, and I can guarantee you it's going to be a very compelling offering. Disney is going to come to the table with something super, super strong. And all of those things. Shrek is very strong.
Wrong studio.
Wrong studio.
Wrong studio. No, Beast. Beast is where you should.
Iron Man.
Yeah, Iron Man. Hulk.
Okay,
but all of those offerings are going to be free of overt advertising. And yet the dollars must flow, right? The dollars have to flow into something. And I'll just say this, and this is very related to the last topic that we talked to, so I don't want to kill it to death. I just want to kill it to maim. If I were
the bloody mess that you're leaving behind.
Bloody mess. Yeah, I want it to get up again. If I were holding the purse strings of a big brand, and I had all of these dollars that needed to go somewhere in support of my goods or products or services, and I thought that ads weren't working and TV wasn't working, I'd be funding content, not funding interrupting other people's content. Mm. That's where I would be spending my dollars. And that's where, we're seeing it in the podcast space because the economics make it work quicker. But we're going to see it a lot more in the video space, a lot more in the
you think space. You think that all the television networks that are trying to get into the digital space, that are trying to provide analytics to advertisers, that they're barking up the wrong tree, and that somehow they need to be doing subscription services? Because what I heard from Tamsyn mirrors a lot of feeling that I hear out there in the marketplace, and even what I feel myself. At a certain point, you just go, oh God, another subscription? No, I can't do it anymore. What's happened to my internet? And it's just like suddenly at some point there's going to be a rebellion, or the pendulum's going to swing in the other direction, and people are going to say, but I don't want to pay for your subscription. Give me the friggin' ads back. And then
I think we're going to see a Spotify for TV, right? So some service that I pay for that is some varying amount of ads that I'm willing to take. But through
Isn't that
I
Hulu?
get the
Haven't you just
content
described
written or video that I want.
Haven't you just described Hulu? I mean, that's what it is.
It's the closest, yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
would love to see it for print because print's the thing that's making me angry right now. I mean, because I love print journalism, I support it, but I can't be paying $20 to $30 a month to like 8 different publications.
Well, I think it's also fair to say, I mean, Hulu is funding its own original content, including the multi-Emmy award-winning Handmaid's Tale.
Woohoo! Sorry, disclosure, Sisters of Raider.
And also the fact that Netflix, we talk a lot about Netflix as, and other things being the Netflix of this and the Netflix of that. Netflix, as it is right now, as far as I can tell, with some knowledge of numbers, is unsustainable, right? They are pouring buckets and buckets of money that they're not getting back into what they do. And they're either going to come out of it like Amazon does, or the whole space is going to fragment. I don't know the answer to that. I agree with Tamsyn.
They're going to come out with 2 headquarters?
They might come out with 2 headquarters instead of 1, but we'll save our powder on that.
For the record, we've got 3 headquarters. I just want to be clear.
That's true.
2 new ones.
2 new ones. So.
2 new ones.
And
but
thank
if you
God,
cut the head off one, 2 more will spring up in its place.
Thank God they chose 2 backwards towns that really needed economic investment as well. So we're really excited to have them.
Well, Crystal City is pretty bleak. I don't know if anybody's ever spent any time there.
They have a Swarovski crystal.
Wow.
okay.
Yeah.
So what we're really saying is that advertising is doomed, even on television. That there's no way for the TV networks to take this model with their already successful model, and no matter what people say about television, no matter how many people decry television and say that it's dying, it's still a several billion-dollar a year business. It's continuing to grow. So we're saying all that's going to disappear overnight?
No,
I mean, it's just like
it needs
seems
to change. I mean, I think the current model of the crap ads pushed at you is gonna fail. But there is plenty of examples of content that's woven into the content that you're consuming. This is a great example right here on the BeanCast. Out of home, I think we're ignoring the power of that.
Massive.
Because I think the more that people go out, I mean, they may not be anymore. I think we're just like Ready Player One happening right now. Like nobody actually leaves the house. But when they do, then you do tend to notice these atmospheric things a little bit more. And I think that's a really underused, underplayed avenue for advertising.
But that's advertising in general, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. I believe that outdoor, I think it was Rashad Tabakawala was famous for saying that, outdoor advertising, outdoor media is the last great stand for brand awareness ads, because that's what they do. They create awareness in public spaces. It's a better media for doing that. But I'm talking about television in particular. Television in particular is a multi-billion-dollar a year industry that is still going strong and is just trying to make itself more digital in its approach, providing data and analytics and targeting to their advertising partners. So it seems like, why wouldn't that work? I mean, why is it that you all believe that that's somehow not going to work and that somehow this is all going to go away because everybody's going for subscription models now and nobody wants to watch ads on television?
It's not going to go away. Look, the new thing doesn't kill the old thing. It diminishes the old thing, and it makes some elements of the old thing stronger. But the new thing never really kills the old thing. It's interesting how you're talking about how much about television getting into the data game, and I see this from a lot of our work on the audio side. The radio industry tries to get into the data game, but the problem is that when you try to get into the data game, then you're talking to the digital people at the media buyer, or you're talking to the digital people at the agency, and they look at your Nielsen estimates and they chuckle because they're getting census level data from their online display advertising.
But
And
that's
all of-
the whole point of this digital transformation is to get away from the Nielsen data and the diaries and the impressions and the buzz ratings and get right down to household data. And I mean, I know that's not
TV though.
I'm sorry?
How are you going to do that with TV, really?
Well,
Broadcast, you can't.
Well, what it comes down to is when you move from a broadcast spectrum, which is what the entire industry is moving toward, you're getting into a household, set-top box, you're getting into computers, you're getting into devices, you're getting back metrics on who people are and what they're watching. And then if you got sign-ups, you get even more data from them because you've got an email address, you got a phone number, you got a credit card, you've got all this information that can potentially help you target this customer a little bit better. And if you get even more opt-in, then you get purchasing behavior. Suddenly you've got a treasure trove of data that you can then use to target that customer a little bit more effectively. Now, again, this is all future state at this point, but is it getting closer and does it even matter? And it seems like you're saying it really doesn't matter in the end how data rich these companies get. They're really playing behind the eight ball at this point. And that's what I'm hearing. And I'm not sure that that's exactly what you mean to be saying.
Well, all that stuff that you talked about, they're not getting that from my parents. They're not getting that from my ex-brother-in-law. They're not getting that from any number of people I know that they're just, the only way that they're on the grid is they have internet access and they watch TV. So if television wants to use all this data and they boil it down and fall into, some kind of optimization trap about it, then we're going to get 12 more young Sheldons next season.
I feel really weird playing the devil's advocate at this point because I actually believe that more data actually will drive these businesses out of business because, I mean, that's the race to the bottom that the entire digital industry has faced since the beginning. It's just like, oh, you only get this kind of result, then I'm going to only pay you this much money. And suddenly the premium goes away. But at the same time, when you're talking about your parents, you're talking about your ex-brother-in-law, I mean, you're talking about a situation where they'll move wherever they need to move when the content goes there. I mean, it's kind of like everybody listened to radio until all the content and new shows were on television, and then you move to television. So, I mean, yes, I agree that some people are Luddites by nature, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to adopt technology at some point when they realize I can't get my favorite program unless I'm on a digital streaming service.
They'll just get it later. I mean, this is why Blu-ray discs still exist.
But broadcast radio still has 90% reach in this country.
True, but I'm just saying that it's just like at a certain point when the old thing goes away, the new thing takes its place. I'm not saying
it doesn't go away. I think that's the point, is that it doesn't go away. So I think, our good friend Jay Baer has been quoting his late father recently saying that things are never going as good as you think they are, and they're never going as badly as you think they are. And I think that's very true of advertising. Like, I don't think there is this great glorious future for it. But at the same time, I don't think TV advertising is totally dead either, because we do tend to get blinded by, what are the millennials and the 18 to 34s doing? And we forget the fact that a huge portion of our population is over 50 and they're just not going there.
Number one TV show of the last season was Roseanne.
Well, since you brought up millennials and you brought up 50-year-olds and wondering where they're going to Instagram. We're going to talk next about the growing importance of Instagram.
That's a segue, children.
I did that very well. I'm very proud of myself.
Tamsyn.
But before I get to that, I do want to take a moment to have a word from our sponsor, AdRoll.
After months of strategizing and prepping budgets and looking at how we're going to position ourselves in the market, I didn't have anyone to fall back on. And I remember pulling the lever for all those campaigns, biting my nails, and just staring at the computer pretty much the entire day. This was the moment where, okay, we hired this guy to do exactly what he's saying. Now it's up to him to deliver. Trying to figure out the best way to serve ads to our customers. To me, it was a black box. AdRoll came in and said, we should target these users at this cadence, this frequency. We doubled our revenue based on what we were projecting for November, December. Succeeding after I've put myself on the line like that, it does give me confidence.
To find out how TeePublic and 37,000 other brands grow their businesses with AdRoll, visit adroll.com/BeanCast. That's ADROLL.com/BeanCast.
Well, moving on, while all of the other social networks are suffering varying degrees of setbacks, I can think of a few that have had really dramatic setbacks of late. Instagram, on the other hand, continues to shine. Tamsyn, what is it about this particular platform that has insulated it from the negative PR that so many of the other social networks have been kind of dealing with as of late? I mean, are they really that protective of our data that we don't have to worry about them?
They're still owned by Facebook.
I know.
I mean, that's amazing to me. People are like, I'm quitting Facebook. Because they've got too much data. And they're like, see you on Instagram. Hello. They have the same stuff. I mean, here's where I think it happens. I mean, Instagram takes more effort. Like, you have to have a picture, you have to write stuff, you have to figure out hashtags. I mean, it does just take a little bit more effort. And I think that,
I don't know. Have you read a single one of Augie Ray's posts as of late? Because I think he takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to write those diatribes. So I'm not saying that.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that there are people who do that, but and there are people who do that very well. I mean, I'm a big fan of Laura Belgray, copywriter, and she does an amazing job on Instagram where she has full blog posts written. Most people don't take the time to stop and read the posts that's associated with an image.
It's so funny that
that's what I'm saying.
It's so funny your perspective is that
there's more of a choice involved.
It's so funny your perspective is that it takes so much more time to do an Instagram post, and thus it's got a lot more value to the consumer, because that's something I hadn't really considered. Because for me, as a consumer of images, it's a lot easier to go flip through a whole bunch of pictures and not read than it is to go to Facebook and have to deal with all this copy that I have to deal with, to catch up with people.
So it's easier to consume, harder to produce. And that imbalance, I think, is the secret to Instagram, because it just takes a lot more effort for you to figure out how you're going to put up some piece of crap. I mean, that's just not as easy. And so I think what happens, because Instagram, you want things to look a certain way, you want them to get people's attention as they're scrolling through, and then there's the post that you write in addition. I think that, I'm not saying that people who are successful on Instagram don't take that time. They do, but you're right. The consumption of it is just, let me scan through, and anything that's particularly interesting, let me stop. But
well, that goes back to that goes back to the Forrester Technographics Ladder. I mean, that's like basic 101. Like 20% of the audience is going to be active participators. They're going to be posters. They're going to be creators, is what the ladder calls them. And they're the ones putting all that effort in. And most of us fall somewhere else on that ladder, down in the consumer behavior. We're either actively going, good job, love your picture, love you, or just actually flipping through the pictures going, oh, I wish I was there. Oh, I wish I was there. So, I mean,
poop my nose.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
What it comes down to is that, the reason that I always find Instagram so compelling, and why I think a lot of people find it compelling, is not the amount of effort it goes into posting a picture or creating a piece of artwork. It's more from the standpoint of people just love to look at pictures.
Right.
I think I think you're absolutely right. That's to Tom's point earlier, and then Tamsyn, what you're saying now, I think, and Bob, I agree with all three of you. The fact is that people are using it, and the barrier of entry for that consumption is so incomprehensibly low, so that they're busy. I mean, I checking it all day, all the time, and posting stuff with very little forethought, or sometimes with a fair amount of it. But nevertheless, the habit is there. So, if you will, that equation, that give and take, that agreement, that trust, that this is stuff I want to do. I care about it. I'm going to look at it. I think that's driving its success. It's actually social.
Yeah. But so far, people haven't generally broken the social contract that's in it. I mean, think about it. I mean, pictures are hard to be the anchor for extremist crap. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's a lot harder to do that. I mean, what's the picture that goes with some kind of racist screed? I'm sure there's examples, but so far the social contract that exists on Instagram seems to be one that's generally more positive, because it's taking the refugees from Facebook.
They're so next.
Well, what
I
about?
know.
They're
It's
just
that. I
next.
mean, I'm sure it's not far,
Yeah,
but
they're
right
just
now.
next.
But what's the difference between that and Snapchat? Because Snapchat was essentially a photo sharing site that allowed the photos to go away, but it combined two things that are really popular for people to do, which is messaging and pictures. And between the two of them, it should have been the thing that took over the world, but it never has. In fact, Instagram's just copied all their features and has done it better. So what is it about the Instagram experience that's so unique, considering that there are apps out there that are doing similar things, yet can't seem to compete with the juggernaut that is this Instagram thing going on right now?
The only thing that I guess with that is that Instagram is public and people like to be seen.
Instagram is aspirational. Snapchat's not aspirational. Like the only person I would connect with on Snapchat that I would aspire to be like is my wife.
Ooh, and I'm not even on it.
And you're not even on it. But Instagram is aspirational, and honestly, it's
like your wife.
In the words of Napoleon when he marched on Moscow, "Merde, it's cold." But he also said you can't fight a war on two fronts, and right now our war is on the Facebook front, and Facebook has given us deception. Right, we have been deceived on Facebook, and we've been deceived by largely political operatives. But Instagram is a giant big fakey lie too, right? We get deceived by the Russians on Facebook. We get deceived by brands on Instagram. And for example, there's this Instagram person named Scarlett London, who is an Instagram influencer. Like that's a thing, right? There, like you've never heard of Scarlett London. That's not a Kardashian. And you can find a picture of Scarlett London in perfect pajamas, lying on a perfectly made bed, having pancakes in bed. My God, the syrup, with a bottle of Listerine on her nightstand, saying something cute about it. Why on earth do we know who Scarlett London is? Why are people following Scarlett London? Because Instagram tells us here's someone we should follow.
Oh, but
this brand
sounds like a grandfather
this kind
comment.
of fakey picture.
That sounds like a grandfather comment there, Tom. Because I mean, it's just like that's what do you think all media has been? I mean, why are we into Brad Pitt? Brad Pitt was put in movies. What makes? Yeah,
well, no, but this is an ad for Listerine, is what I'm saying, and this is a person who is an Instagram celebrity, and it's every bit as deceptive as the way news dissemination has been on Facebook. We're just worried about Facebook now.
No, yeah. So I think you're onto something, but I think the issue, the difference with Instagram is that it's personalized. So, because let's face it, every single consumer user of Instagram is busy trying to manipulate every other single user. So it's kind of like a given. It's what you do on Instagram, right? Here's the cool dinner I'm at, and look, I'm at this thing. It's all about influencing and manipulating one another, right? I have a fabulous life. So I think the difference is that maybe some of that manipulation or that whatever the Machiavellian thing is personalized, whereas on a Facebook, there is no necessarily there's no personification of the fake news source necessarily. It's not. It isn't just Kim Kardashian. It's Revolution for America, and I don't know who that is, and it feels like I'm being manipulated, whereas I'm busy manipulating and being manipulated by everybody I follow and who follows me on Instagram any day, every day anyway. So again, maybe it's your original point about just that contract is still effective, that we're all going to manipulate each other here, and we're all going to take this somewhat with a grain of salt. I think Instagram's benefiting from that sort of. It's kind of transparent, not completely, but kinda. No.
Well, for me, the big question is what, because all those are great points, but the big question for me remains about Facebook being the mothership. I mean, what is the future of this relationship as a master brand over this kind of subsidiary brand that is eventually, well, it looks in every account to be somehow eclipsing the mothership pretty soon, isn't it? I mean, is Facebook equipped to handle that? I mean, what do you think? I mean,
I think Facebook just wants the information wherever they can get it. I mean, I think this is why.
but
I think
Facebook,
the future of Facebook and is their access is the fact that they're the access portal for all these other sites. I mean, not only so it doesn't even matter to them if you're not posting on Facebook anymore because you're accessing all these other places through your Facebook profile. They know everything that you're doing. So I think it's.
But if you don't go to Facebook,
if
you don't go to Facebook,
it's all about their data.
If you don't go to Facebook, they don't have any ads to sell. I mean, there's nobody going to Facebook. Nobody's going to buy those ads. And quite frankly, there's so many different ad opportunities on a Facebook on Facebook's master plan. It just seems like you're never going to recoup that loss on an Instagram stream. It seems like the only way that Instagram can ever be the mothership or be the premier brand is to somehow change dramatically into something that it's not today. You can already see hints of that going on with the addition of Instagram TV, which is almost like a whole separate section of the app that takes you out and takes you into this separate opportunity for them to create, I would assume ad revenue going down the line. So, is Instagram able to navigate that change? And can Facebook still monetize it if it becomes their primary platform over their Facebook master platform?
I'm not sure it's going to be. I mean, Facebook is in decline. I mean, certainly our research shows that. But I back to Tamsyn's point, I don't see Instagram eclipsing Facebook in that way, right? I mean, Facebook can make money advertising to you whether you go to Facebook or not. I mean, if there's God, it's scary. Go to what apps you have used on Facebook that you have used Facebook to sign into. Facebook knows that I used 4 different running apps sporadically, right? And so, I can be shown ads through any ad network that are targeting me as a shitty runner, and Facebook has that data. Whether I went to the Facebook page or not, they can target me in many, many, many ways. And they are, number one, smart, and number 2, evil. So I fully expect them to do that.
Well, I got to move on to the final topic because we're running out of time. Creatively, PR has always lagged behind advertising at the award shows. Not really sure why, but it's just always been that way. My question, Jonathan, is there something intrinsic to the PR model that puts them at a disadvantage? And can it be fixed? And going further, should it be fixed? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so the answers, because I know we're short of time, is yes, no, and I don't think so.
Okay, well, give us some more.
Let's go to the fail 5, fast fail 5. No, PR is a different animal, right? I mean, and it always was. And it is, to Tamsyn's point about the 20th century being this blip of how we communicate with one another. Before, radio and television came around in the late 1800s, early 20th century, PR was the way your butcher talked to you when you picked up your meat, or your cobbler talked to you when you complained about your shoes falling apart. That was PR. The only reason we have PR as a profession is because it emerged with Ivy Lee and Ed Bernays and all those guys using mass media to manipulate what people think and know. So from the get-go, PR was always about earned media, and that media being mass media. So it's a different animal than advertising. It's just a different way of thinking, a different way of looking at how you influence people. It's, if you will, it's about influencing influencers when you can't buy them.
Could it be the economics of it as well? Because one of the perceptions I've always had about PR is that when it comes to creative execution, they're much more stingy on the dollars that they want to spend because the clients are much more stingy on the dollars they want to spend. And it's so much of the economics are, we have a thin layer of management at the top who gets paid fairly well. And then you have a whole bunch of young people and interns who are just coming out of college who are, hungry to get ahead in the business and willing to take a lower salary in order to make it into the business. So from an economic standpoint, you're never going to get the kind of creative that's going to win at Cannes when you're doing a PR campaign for most PR agencies.
Yeah. So, but I don't agree. It's a different animal. And I'm assuming now the statute of limitations is over, because I'll reveal to you. So in 1998, I led the PR team on the first iMac launch for Apple.
Right, you've said that before in the show.
Yeah.
So if the statute of limitations are not up, you're in trouble already. So you go for it.
So I'm already dog food. So, but I'm going to tell you just in a couple sentences, our brilliant PR strategy was that nobody wanted to buy an Apple computer, so we had to make it look like the first weekend of sales was a sellout. And that it was a sellout. So we made sure that the business, to Mitch Joel's point, the business sold all the first shipment, the first containers worth of computers were sold to Apple fanatics who were willing to buy a box with an Apple logo on them. And then we got invited TV crews to show up at computer cities and other retailers to film the lack of product on the shelves. And then we made sure we had spokespeople at all the major retailers to be able to talk about how there were, we've run out of Apples, out of iMacs. We'll start waitlisting them. So the takeaway for the launch wasn't a product attribute, it wasn't a brand attribute, it was the sellout and it was completely orchestrated because the fix was in. Now, how the hell do you write the submission on that? It's a different PR is when you're talking about influencing influencers that you can't otherwise buy. I just think it's a different animal. And it was interesting in the article that we're talking about, a couple of folks just said, who cares about Cannes? Why is it even relevant? And I'm on that side. I'm because I grew up on the PR side, I'm deeply skeptical of the way these Edelmans and Weber Shandwick's et al. Are going toward this idea of talking about marketing communications. It's a different animal. It's not PR. In the end of the day, it's funny if advertising is doing this big cycle and we're going to go start having Hulu's et al. Selling ad space, like big branding, big marketing idea from the 1950s. Maybe earned media will matter again. Maybe it'll matter that the New York Times or that CNET or whomever actually endorses and writes about your product because they've actually decided they like it or not, which means communicating with those folks isn't marketing communications, and it's not big, beautiful, expensive, creative. It's just smart, strategic communications thinking. So I'm saying, you know what? The hell with Cannes.
Fair enough. And with that, it's time for the AdFail 5. But before we get to that segment of the show, I do want to take this quick opportunity to thank my guests again and allow them to each do a shameless plug, starting with Jonathan Salem Baskin, the man you just heard speaking. You can find him at arcadialab.net. Tell us what's going on in your world, Jonathan. What would you like to promote?
Yeah, well, Bob, so I'm doing two one blog post, blog, and one podcast. So if people want to check out, I'm sort of a little cynical about technology businesses and how we talk about technology. So if you go to crossofsilicon.com, I'm posting stories there about various specific technology communications topics. And then I've got about a dozen podcasts in the can, nowhere near reaching the quality of this podcast, I might add, called The Brand Populist. And my premise there is that consumers are starting to act like they own companies, right? So it's not just about boycotting because they don't like your ads. It's boycotting because they don't like your supply chain. So, how do businesses respond to that? And again, you get to quote Mitch Joel, somebody who's not here, isn't the business really the brand? And don't we really need to talk about how we communicate the business to consumers? So thebrandpopulist.com is my podcast. And so, yeah, I'd love people to check them out.
Sounds fantastic. Now, Tamsyn Webster, you can find her at tamsynwebster.com. Very easy to remember. So tell us what's going on in your world, Tamsyn. What would you like to promote?
I think similar to Jonathan, pointing people towards the weekly video podcast that I do. So it's called Find the Red Thread. You can find that at tamsynwebster.com/content or on my YouTube channel at Tamsyn Webster. Well, youtube.com/Tamsyn Webster.
and well worth getting that content because Tamsyn is phenomenal. You've got to go see her speak sometime. And last but not least, we have Tom Webster. You can find him at edisonresearch.com. You may know Tom from very many famous reports that he puts out, most notably the one on podcasting, which everybody wants to quote constantly. So tell us, Tom, what would you like to promote?
I'd like to brag on my colleagues. What some people may or may not know, we're the sole providers of both exit polling and the vote count data for the national election pool, folks like CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, and so on. So as you were watching television on election night, we were working behind the scenes providing all of that exit polling and actual vote count data for about 540 races that we covered. And there were no mistakes. Nobody called a race wrong. And people like to kind of slam on polling. You know, polling did a really good job this year. So not just my colleagues, but pre-election polling as well. We keep getting better. We keep iterating. And I'm incredibly proud of my team.
Yeah, in fact, I've heard some commentary recently about the 2016 election that you guys nobody got it really wrong. It was just the way that it was being called was the wrong thing. The data was showing the indications there. So you guys are doing a phenomenal job. So can definitely recommend that. As for me, for more information about me or the show, visit thebeancast.com. There you can find a complete show archive. You can find out how to consult with me. You can even find out how to advertise on this program, so check it all out at thebeancast.com. And don't forget, we now have transcription of all episodes. Just go to transcribeme.com/beancast for your transcription service. They're doing this as a free service for us, and they're giving you a discount. So just go to transcribeme.com/beancast, and you can get great transcription like we're getting right now. And now it's time for the AdFell 5, a rundown of the lowest moments in advertising, marketing, and public relations from the last week. And first up, Amazon. Amazon ran this phenomenal campaign where they were trying to find a new location for their headquarters number 2. Hundreds of cities competed. Millions and millions of dollars was wasted for them to just put the two headquarters, split the headquarters, I should say, between Crystal City, Virginia and Queens, New York. You know, some people are calling this corporate welfare. I'm not sure how to take it, but it does seem a little bit egregious. What would you say, Tamsyn?
Well, I think it's best answered by my Bostonian alter ego, Karen O'Sullivan, who's wicked pissed that Amazon didn't come to Boston. You know, I think it's yet another, I mean, depending on what side of the data is evil fence that you're on, I mean, Amazon just got a whole bunch of information from all these cities about what their future plans are, who's living there, what they're trying to do. And since Amazon wants to be the supplier of everything to everyone, they've got a lot of really good information. I don't think that's right.
I think the funniest thing that anybody analyzed was that the data center in where is it, Tennessee, that the Queens, New York location and the Crystal City location are all within driving distance of one of the founder, Jeff Bezos's homes. So I love that theory that somehow he just wanted a quick drive into the office no matter where he was in the country.
The whole thing played out to me like the decision from LeBron James about 5 years ago when he had a primetime TV special to announce he was taking his talents from Cleveland to Miami. You know, Cleveland was like, but we offered you all these tax incentives, LeBron. And LeBron was like, nah, dog, Miami's going to build me an airport.
Well, next up, Jonathan, we spent $5.25 billion on political ads in the recent election, but $0 helping make sure that every vote got counted. I love this thought that's been going around, this meme that's been kind of trashing advertising. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I don't know, because from a mercenary sort of realist perspective, it's kind of like expecting that the shoppers lined up outside Walmart at 2 a.m. the evening of Thanksgiving into the next day to line up for Black Friday sales should somehow take responsibility for being accommodating, polite shoppers and lining up conveniently and allowing the most needy to get the best deals. You know, on one level, politics is a brass knuckle business of winning elections, and who am I or who are we to judge where they should spend their money to try to get candidates elected, even if they were long shots. There's a long game here for both political parties. They're the two that are most viable. So on one level, I can't slight them for how they spend their money. As a patriot and as an American, I just think we should have elections on Saturdays.
Yeah, there's a lot going wrong with the election system, but my thought is, in anything with marketing, you want to make sure that the entire chain of contact is perfect. You know, you don't want to you don't just want to have a great ad campaign. You want to make sure that it goes to a functional website that gets you to the product that's advertised, that makes it easy to buy. And we've somehow done really, really well at getting people to the polls, but then everything broke down. You know, we have, bad polling systems, inconsistent balloting systems.
Yeah, blame the Constitution, man.
Yeah. Well, moving on, all that talk from Facebook about how surprised they were about the Russian effort to sway the U.S. presidential election. Remember that? You remember that, Tom? According to the New York Times, they knew all along. And now Mr. Zuckerberg is being called to step down once again by investors. This one's pretty damning the way it came out, isn't it?
Well, I'm thrilled by it because it's allowed me to save a lot of money on the new Facebook portal. Have you seen the Facebook portal, Bob? This new, it's like a video phone with Alexa built into it, and all this bad press has. I got like $100 off it because it's kind of flailing. The only thing you need to do to sign up for Facebook portal, you need a username, which is your mother's maiden name and the last 4 digits of your social. So if you want to hang out with me on Facebook portal, it's Warner6282, and you'll see where I live.
Okay.
On this one, I'm reminded of Maya Angelou, I believe, who said the first time someone shows you who they are, believe them. Remember that Facebook started as a hot or not software program at Harvard.
Great point.
I think we've known for a long time exactly where Zuckerberg's morals are.
Well, next up, a recent study shows that 1/3 of all brands do not disclose influencer relationships for fear that it will negatively impact the effectiveness of the campaign. Jonathan, you were just mentioning this. You were just bringing this up, if I'm not mistaken. The fact that influence campaigns are not being disclosed is no surprise, but to know that so many brands are actively doing it, and it's not just because of influencers shirking their duties.
Yeah, and it's funny, Bob, because I'm not so certain that if they disclosed it would matter. In other words, I'm not so certain that they're sitting on some horrible dark secret. I think it is such a given that Khloe Kardashian can only support, or whomever, the top 10 influencers are. It's like the people who love them kind of know there's a scam going on and they don't care. So to me, it's one of those, why are you working so hard to cover up something that doesn't really matter? I would say disclose it. I think the bigger question is, we as a social construct, as a community, why aren't we being more pointed and focused on regulating it? Because I'm not a big government intrusion guy, but there should be some rule. I mean, again, I get back to these ads from the 1950s in my Taschen beautiful book here. You had to disclose who you were selling crap. It was just a fact, and I don't understand why we as a society have decided, I think we don't care. And my point is, I don't understand why we don't care.
I don't know.
All right.
Let's move to the last.
I think it is true, though, that Khloe Kardashian has limited capacity.
I think that's true. Well, anyway, last but not least, the Washington Post recently disclosed that in order to become compliant with GDPR, Tamsyn, they had to scrap nearly all of their programmatic tools. Boy, this is a bad black eye on the programmatic universe, isn't it? The fact that they couldn't
you mean GDPR did exactly what it was supposed to do? Oh, shucks.
Yeah.
I think you can sum up. You can.
I'm sorry.
I think you can sum up the Washington Post's actions here in the words of the great American semiotician and privacy expert Homer Simpson, when he said, "Too hard, take nap."
We can quote Homer Simpson all day, but with that, it's if you have something to add to this list or just want to discuss it, comment online, use the hashtag AdFail5. That's pound AdFail and the number 5. Well, that does it for this week's show. If you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, visit our website at thebeancast.com and click on the subscribe link. If you're an iTunes listener, we've also provided a direct link to the iTunes Music Store, or just search for the BeanCast in the podcast directory of iTunes. And whichever podcast directory you use, when you subscribe, please leave us a review. Got a comment? Have a question? We'd love to hear from you. Just send your emails to beancast@gmail.com. Opening theme was performed by Joe Seibel. Closing theme by C. Jax. Thanks for listening. I'm Bob Norp. We'll be back again next week. Hope you'll join us then.
You know what I mean? It's like if it's, you know what I mean? I don't know, man. It's just like, okay, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like totally like that. It's like, I don't know, like if it's, you know, it's like, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's just like kind of, it just seems like it's just like almost exactly.
Next time, can I bring my better half? Because I think it's only fair. I mean, come
Wait,
on.
couples night.
We had couples night.
Yeah.
You know, Whitney has asked to be on the show before. I say, you want to talk about marketing? She's like, no.
Probably true.
Well, I don't want to talk about marketing either, but it's so fun.
Yeah, it's like exactly. Yeah. You know what I mean? Exactly.
Cool beans.